Are there some words of advice that you could give to people when they are dealing with claims on mold remediation that might help them to be able to get better? Is there anything like that?
No, it's not. I wish I could say there were certain words or phrases or
Sure.
that you can use. It's hard.
I'm not asking to game the system.
No,
I
it's
just
not
want,
gaming the system.
If you want to be able to communicate and be honest and, just...
It's always best to, I tell homeowners, we tell tenants, it's always best to be direct. If the damage was, no one was aware that something was occurring, it's obvious, right? You wouldn't know. But if you have like stains on the wall, you obviously, there's something going on. If you haven't dealt with it, you're going to have a hard time getting a carrier to cover it for you. So It's just being as proactive. Look, it's like everything else in life. If you procrastinate over something, the problems are going to get worse. Water damage, mold-related issues, it's no different. Right? The faster you take care of it, the less the expense is going to be, and the more likely that the insurance carrier, if you're not self-insuring, and a lot of large property owners self-insure, but if there's a carrier involved, the more proactive you're dealing with the situation, they're apt to work with you and help you.
That's good to know.
Yeah, it's really not. They're not looking to stick it to their customers. They're really not.
Okay.
That's a misperception or a misconception.
Okay. Well, what about the mold we can't see? So
You can smell it.
that was what I was going to say. I walk in and I go,
In the what?
what is that smell?
Look, I will tell you that
How do you detect that?
in the warm weather months, you could smell it. Mold has a.
But
There's
okay,
an
you walk
odor.
in, and so then how do you determine where it's coming from?
That's where we have to go out and we have to determine where the moisture is, and that's using infrared cameras and
there
that's
you
using
go.
the meters to really determine where that
The
moisture may
high-tech
be coming
equipment
from.
comes
Yes,
out.
yeah, because sometimes it's going to be behind walls, and sometimes you just can't tell, right? So we have to just do some investigating, and that just comes with experience.
Is all mold green?
No.
And does all mold smell?
Typically, yes, there's moisture involved, and that moisture, and you have rotting materials, and that's the smell.
Interesting. So the rotting materials also.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay, so what about is all mold harmful?
I'm not a doctor, and I get that question a lot. Mold will not, I'm going to couch what I say, mold's not going to kill anybody unless you have some underlying respiratory issue. It could exacerbate that issue, right? It creates allergic reactions. You could, if you're the least bit allergic to mold spores.
I have a 5 to mold, so if I walk in and I smell it,
yeah.
I literally just pivot.
But there are people with health issues.
Go back right out.
If you have underlying health issues, if
Yeah.
you have respiratory issues,
I know.
it is going to exacerbate those issues. So for me, the typical person, it's not going to harm. It's going to make you uncomfortable. It's going to create allergic reaction. But if you're elderly or infants, people with young children in the house really freak out over mold. People with elderly people in their homes freak out over mold. Rightly so.
So I have obviously, in our line of work, been in a lot of apartment buildings and even office buildings can have mold. It's not unique to multifamily. But when you see those cinder blocks that have that white crusty stuff on it, it's a calcification. Is that?
No, not mold.
See, I have been in those situations. I actually knew the answer to that, but I wanted
Not mold.
to make sure that there was a clarification because some building materials just they change their texture when they age. Did you have a question?
Yeah,
Sure.
when you're done.
Oh no, that was it. I was just wanting to make sure that don't just assume because there's something funky on the wall.
Especially on cement block.
On cement block especially.
And typically you see it in single, in crawl spaces, in basements. You got moisture that seeps through block, right? There are ways you can encapsulate those walls with encapsulation paint to keep that moisture from coming through, but that's not necessarily mold.
Question, so we had several people in here, obviously multifamily investors. So when they have an inspection done and it comes back that says there's mold, they need to have it treated, right? And then you get the report back or from the other agent that says, okay, it's been treated and done. Is your suggestion to have somebody like you to come out and check and make sure that has been properly done? Because obviously a typical just inspector, is more.
They're not a professional.
Hey, that's not our profession, so you may want to have this done. What is your?
So so I'm going to answer that the best way I can. We don't do testing. I purposely use independent industrial hygienists to test for mold. So in a situation where growth is suspected, and sometimes in a multifamily, and there's a potential purchase at play, sometimes in that case, I would suggest we have an inspection, a formal mold inspection and mold test, and a hygienist will come in, and based on that testing, they'll provide a proper protocol to remediate that mold. And as long
Are they expensive to get those tests?
Test is not, look, it all depends. It depends on the size of the structure. A typical single family home, under $1,000 to do a mold test, but we typically don't do them in residential homes. You're always going to have mold. I mean, you open a door, mold spores go in and out of someone's home. But in a sale of a multifamily, that's a fairly large investment, depending on how many units. I would definitely bring in an industrial hygienist. And depending on the age of the structure, you could have there are a lot of, there's asbestos that can come into play. But for mold, if it's suspected, I would have it formally tested.
So what kind of interplay is there between asbestos and mold? Does mold like asbestos, or?
No, there's no interplay. They don't. One doesn't interplay,
one doesn't
or
feed
it
the
doesn't
other?
feed off the other.
Okay, because I know, like with gypsum, it's like, and
It doesn't interplay.
Okay.
Now, asbestos, if you have damaged materials, water damage, and asbestos is in play, you have different types of problems occur, and asbestos is a totally different. Asbestos abatement is different from mold remediation, and we have to treat that separately and handle that separately.
Okay, very cool. Well, I am so grateful for your willingness to share with us your knowledge. I've always admired your wisdom in anything beyond just even mold remediation. So thank you for your generosity.
Wisdom, I'll take wisdom any day. That's cool.
Sure.
We all want to be wise.
And that's actually what we're striving to do, right? Is to be wise in our choices and to make good choices, to be able to provide for our families and to create that generational wealth. And I think it's important for us to learn from the experts who know what they're doing and rely on their and not.
If I can make one final general statement.
Yeah, please do.
If you're looking, sometimes we're all anxious, and I've done it myself. We're anxious to make an investment, and we sort of turn an eye to something that we see. Don't turn an eye. If you see something, just have it inspected properly. It'll serve you better in the long run. Water damage. If you sense mold, like Brian and I just discussed, don't be afraid to get it properly tested. Don't be afraid to have someone come and take a look. Better you know than you don't know. And better to not hope it goes away. It doesn't. It gets worse.
Yeah, I think we get caught up in the passion of the deal, and people have the emotion, and
all the time.
And it's easy to get excited about something, and then you disconnect, and it's like the red flags are there, and they're literally smelling and waving and going, alert, danger, Will Robinson, and we still go forward.
I see
and,
a lot.
and it's not just in mold; it's just in life, right? But
I see it a lot with single-family homes because people get emotionally attached to the home that they want, and they do things that you wouldn't do. These type of transactions are more business related than emotional, but we all get emotional on investments, even business investments, right? And just be thorough. Not saying the investment's not good. Just if you, well, what do they say? If you see something, say something. If you see something, say something.
any other questions before we wrap up?
Is your company's based here in town?
Yes, sir.
What's the name of your company?
It's Rytech of Middle Tennessee.
How do you spell that?
RYTECH. It's a national franchise out of Atlanta. And my business covers multiple counties in and around Davidson.
Awesome.
But the thing I really appreciate about him is because he does have standard practices, and he does have a brand that he has to uphold. And so he's not just a one-man shop with a bottle of bleach.
Bleach. Yeah.
No, no,
You know,
no, no.
and he's licensed and insured, and he's got a great reputation in the market. So
It's certified, yeah. No, we got all that stuff.
all the alphabet
Oh.
soup.
I appreciate Robert because he just tells it like it is, right? He'll look at it. I mean, he's very straightforward.
He's
very
direct but kind.
You know, it's just.
Direct but kind.
It's a great
No,
guy.
I like that. That's good.
I think it's true.
You tell my wife I'm direct but kind.
She's the one that told me. What are you talking about?
My Bronx roots were all direct but kind.
There you go. Well, I don't know if all the Bronx people that I've met are necessarily kind. I think that you do have a generous heart, and I appreciate that very much about you.
You got to love what you do. Every day's great. Life, business, sorry, I don't mean to pontificate. I love every day, and I enjoy every day, the good, the bad, the ugly. It's all good.
Well, I think you bring with it because you like all of us, we've had ups and downs. I think you bring an empathy, and you know what it feels like to have a bad day. And I think
Been beaten up a lot. It's good.
well, but I think that's a good thing. That's a real.
It's a very good thing.
Real
That's
thing.
lessons.
And sometimes you can have people who are in your home who are doing services who really haven't actually been in your shoes. They just are working for someone who is paying their paycheck, and they don't have empathy for whatever situation you're going through. And I think in your case, you do have the wisdom to be able to help them at one of the worst days of their life.
And we talk about that. Look, what I try to do with my crews, I'm a finance guy. I'm not these are very soft middle-aged hands. But what I do is we talk about, I teach them how to be. I teach my techs how to be with people. Because no one ever wants to see one of our trucks pull up. It is real. And people are angry, and they're upset they're in that situation, and they're going to take it out on us, and we talk about it. And our job is to just deflect it and be professional and let them know it's going to be okay. Well, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. And you're not going to like us for the next 5 days because we're going to be around a lot, and the equipment's going to drive you bloody nuts. But then we'll be gone, and it'll be done, and it'll be okay. And that's really, it's just doing the right thing by people and providing good service and trying to help, Do we make mistakes? Yeah, of course we do. We are not perfect. None of us are machines. You just try to fix it and be honest and move on to the next.
What do you think, folks? So we have cookie bribery where my box is.
They're behind the bee.
So we are grateful for your willingness to be here today. And Tips Treats is just right next door, and so this is for you to take for you
Wow.
and your family, and they are squishy and warm. So,
Wow, I'm going to bring these into the guys tomorrow. They'll
Yeah.
be very happy.
Yeah, there you go.
They got all
thank
the
you
excess
so much,
Halloween
Robert.
candy too. They were very happy. Sugar.
Thank you so much
Keep
for
flying
taking
the
the
sugar.
time to come tonight.
Thank you.
And,
Dealt with
really,
the traffic, right, Brian? It was terrible.
Yeah, we are
all
all
dealt with
glad
the
that
traffic.
everyone made it in time finally. So phew. Anyway, you're welcome to stay and listen to Brian Bandis and
No, I'm
the two Brians.
gonna get running.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Nice meeting everybody.